And we're live. Welcome to the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. I'm Salvador Cordova, your host and the founder of this channel. This channel focuses on evidence and reasons and apologetics. And hang on. Sorry about that. I had to cut audio from the mirror feed here. Always a technical glitch. This channel is intended, tends to cater to graduate students in the sciences who are also believers. They have special needs in these areas. So a large part of the content focuses on evidences the reason of the Christian faith, evidences for the Christian faith in the area of creation science. I personally, just since people would probably be curious, I'm a professing Christian. I believe the earth and the universe are young, according to a literal reading of the genealogy of Jesus Christ and also the relevant passages in Genesis, the book of Genesis. I accept the evangelical and mostly Reformed interpretation of the scriptures. If people ask me what ism I subscribe to, I no longer self-identify as a Calvinist. I'm a Bibleist. That is, if there are words in the Bible that define our theology, such as predestination, I will use those words. So, that being said, about what I said about graduate students in the sciences, our lives as Christians are not solely about science. It's about our Christian walk, about the churches we attend and the struggles we deal with. So greetings to Andrew Graham in his image. In a sense, what I have to say is not really breaking news, but it's something I overlooked. It looks like David Platt, pastor of my church, McLean Bible, will be facing a jury trial. A jury trial for Reverend David Platt. The irony is David Platt and his staff threatened me with jail and arrest from 5 separate counties on the East Coast if I attended a worship service there. In fact, on October 3rd last year, they pulled me out. Armed security pulled me out in the middle of a worship service. No explanation in any detail was given, except to sully my reputation before the congregation. Nasty emails were sent describing me in the most unflattering terms, and I would vociferously argue they were false, misleading allegations, no basis in reality. And I can, some of you have seen Dr. Sandy Pigeon here, retired Navy SEAL, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy. He was on the security staff of McLean Bible when President Trump visited. If I had been any threat, if he sensed any threat to the congregation, he would have spoken up. He has vouched for me throughout all this time, because there's nothing that I was doing that was a threat to anyone that was in church for good reason. The only threat I possibly posed was I was revealing facts about the church under David Platt's tenure. And let me show what I mean. I began to do very careful counting, which included photographic surveillance and evaluation of photographs of the attendance numbers. Everyone has been noticing, like, for example, at the McLean Tyson's campus, they used to have 5 services packed out. We had to have parking lot staff. We had a parking lot ministry. It would take 45 minutes to empty out on a Sunday morning. We had 5 services, 4 on Sunday, 1 on Saturday. The Saturday service was canceled. 2 Sunday services are canceled. The remaining 2 in Tyson's Corner are not even half full. The Prince William campus, decimated. Arlington, decimated. Empty. Loudon, not full. Let me graphically show what has happened under David Platt's tenure. And what got me a little bit exercised tonight is a member of McLean Bible is publicly telling me on the internet that I should leave. He's saying that I am sowing dissension. I need to point out, and this gentleman's name is, let me see what his name is. I believe it's John Wilkinson. Let me just verify this. Just one moment. Let me go look this up. And I'm going to quote what he's been saying about me and to me on Bobby Gilstrap's weblog. John Williamson. John Williamson says, Salvador, you are sowing dissension. Let it be. Move on. Shake the dust from your sandals and find a ministry that will help you grow. That's a very interesting phrase to use. Shake the dust off sandals. That's the command Jesus gave to people, to his apostles, when people were rejecting the gospel message. You shake the dust off your sandals because the people you're trying to deal with are so bad, you leave. And this is really kind of interesting because unwittingly, he's almost saying, this is such a bad, are you, John Williamson, are you like insinuating that things are so bad I should just shake the dust off my sandals and just leave because the people there are unreachable, including you and David Platt? See, you didn't quite use that passage, I think, correctly, John. That's for starters. Leave MBC to the justice and correction, if required, of Jesus Christ. You're harming yourself in this quest for vindication. I'm not looking for my vindication, sir. Armed security of McLean Bible Church, with the full consent and approval, and probably the behest of David Platt, Wade Burnett, etc., threatened a young Christian wife and mother. Are you okay with that, John? Are you okay with that? You as a member, all of us as members, have the responsibility to oust leadership that is not serving the Lord. And need I remind you, sir, we are breaking records in other churches for attendance. But McLean, here in this area, the one church that is dying is McLean Bible. And you, sir, yourself complained about the numbers. How did I come at the numbers? The solid line are from official congregational reports. But the current administration has conflated supposed online visits with a questionable interpolation and mix them together with brick and mortar. The brick and mortar numbers are down here. This does not bode well for David Platt's leadership. So, this whole thing about saying, let the justice of Christ do this. Was that the attitude in the Old Testament? when God called us to work justice, to protect widows, just let the justice of Christ do it? Yes, let the justice of Christ do it. And if he chooses to do it through us, so be it, because he has given us commands. It said in Revelation, if the church of Ephesus, Jesus commended the church of Ephesus for not tolerating evil in the church. So if I see a Christian wife and mother in front of her kids threatened with armed security merely because she's asking difficult, uncomfortable questions, that doesn't sit well. That shouldn't sit well with anyone, especially Christians running a church. So let me keep reading what John Williamson has had to say. As a fellow member, we'll disagree, but the conversation we're having over the internet is not allowed in Dave Platt's church. Now, a jury trial could be really expensive, a civil trial. Would the judgment against David Platt immediately result in him going to jail or being fined? No. The irony is all that's being asked is one, the votes be redone, the membership rolls that he manipulated be restored to their original state, and those people that he scrubbed from the rolls illegally be restored to membership and that they're able to vote. I don't know if there is a provision in the complaint to mandate that the congregational floor be opened. I will point out Platt's troubles may not be limited to this lawsuit. And I'm just throwing this out there, guys. He's illegally trespassed me in 5 counties. Does he want lawsuits recorded against him in 5 counties? 5 different directions? So the grounds, just to contrast my situation with what's happening with the present injunction involving, it's officially titled Gaskins et al. Those are members who were scrubbed from the rolls. Those were on behalf of members scrubbed from the rolls. I'm currently a member that is technically in good standing, but I'm threatened with arrest and jail if I set foot on church property. Now, why would that be? I can only speculate what the reasoning is. I think they realized they made a stupid mistake by trespassing me, forbidding me on church property while they're in the middle of a lawsuit claiming they are rigging the elections. That would look really bad. But just suffice to say, even this jury trial is not the end of it. And I think the moment that McLean Bible has used law enforcement agencies on their own congregation in 5 separate counties, 1 in Maryland, 4 in Virginia, they have now made this no longer an ecclesiastical matter, but a matter of secular courts, that they're using secular law enforcement to do their bidding to abuse church members. This now can be decided in secular court. And there is a legitimate, yes, there is a legitimate discussion to be had. 1 Corinthians says about people going to lawsuit for one another, against one another, taking each other to court. There are a couple considerations here. When the brother is no longer behaving according to Scripture, he can be treated as an unbeliever after he's been confronted. Being treated doesn't mean he's an unbeliever, but he can be subject to being treated as an unbeliever. He can be treated as an unbeliever. And that threshold, in my opinion, has been crossed. Other examples, and I've thrown this at Christians, and I said, you think about this. Let's say I don't profess the Catholic Church faith anymore. But suppose you're in the Catholic Church and the priest is caught abusing children. And we know this is, court cases have come out. Do you just walk away? Or do you call the police? Because the Catholic Church has had a reputation of catching the priest, confronting him, and then just reassigning him to a different diocese or church, rather than having him reported to the authorities and thrown in jail. So, let's say that a pastor beats his wife, as happened at Occoquan Bible Church, a church I had attended before I became an official member of McLean, and I'd been on and off a part of McLean. But while I was at Occoquan Bible Church, Kyle Austin, the police were called to his home one night because his wife was calling for help. He was beating her and their children. Now, is it inappropriate to call on for help from secular authorities? I mean, should we just resolve this among the elder board and the congregation? Does she have no right to enlist the help of secular authorities to protect her, and just as importantly, probably more so importantly to her, to protect her children? And say there is financial malfeasance by the elder against the widow in the church, and no one is standing up for her. Are you just going to let the elders, and the elders are all corrupt or compromised? Are you going to let that slide? Is that, I think the way that I read Corinthians, if it is a loss for you, why not you be defrauded? It says, why not you be defrauded? That's the way I read it. But a loss for someone else, maybe you should have some spine and stand up for your fellow brother or sister in the Lord. One thing that John MacArthur, I think, did well, he was pointing out Jesus was always meek and humble. But when his Father's house was defiled, he drove the evil people out of the house of prayer. And so they're saying what's going on here is not Christ-like. What's Christ-like is to drive out the thieves and the evildoers from the house of prayer. And Jesus himself commended the Ephesian church for not tolerating those who do evil in the church. And elders can and should be deposed from the church. And if the whole lot of them are compromised and agreeing and assenting to what's going on, and they're robbing, effectively using legal maneuvers against the spirit of the founders and the people that had donated, I think they're subject to removal. That's my opinion. And an interesting legal question that I would pose to any of you elders, and David Platt, if you're listening. According to the Constitution, is it my constitutional right that if I believe you're acting corruptly and incompetently, is it my right, first of all, to vote against you? Secondly, to communicate my reservations and my concerns about your behavior to others, encourage them to vote against you too, to oust you? And if you say that's fine, then why was I removed from the church? And why did you spread falsehoods about me to the entire congregation? So the irony, David Platt, is I'm the one that didn't have to face trial. You're the one that will. And this trial may not be the end of it. If in documents it's revealed that part of the money flows did indeed come from the federal government and you're responsible for handling it and it's been mismanaged, you could be served with felony counts there, buddy. Is that why you've not been transparent about what's been going on? And what other financial dealings have you been doing that could be considered illegal? According to government statutes, you could be in big trouble. And I don't have as much of a beef with the elder board, especially Chuck Hollingsworth and Patrick Lee. They were very kind and cordial to meet me. But guys, I suggest you demand from David Platt, from Bill Steele, from Larry Cooper, from Wade Burnett, whoever's in authority, that you have access to all the financial records, that you can hire your own auditor to look at this. And if they stonewall you, threaten to resign, and threaten to make a criminal referral, cover yourself. It's not worth your reputation being trashed. It's not worth the headaches to you and your family to be drugged down in something that could be really shady, and some overzealous prosecutor would be just delighted to get as many people in jail as he wants. Why do you want to be a part of this? And if you think I'm causing dissension, sir, let me remind you of this here. Does this look like David Platt and the present leadership have done an excellent job for a church that took 61 years to build and only a fraction of that to just obliterate it? The carnage is unspeakable. So I will put a link to the capstone article if I haven't already in the video description. I did not realize at the time when I did a public reading of this article that a jury trial was in play. I mean, the amount of depositions that could be filed here, the amount of witnesses that could be deposed, I don't know how many, but you think there are 6 elders, there's any number of, and then David Platt, Mike Kelsey, Wade Burnett, several other pastors. I mean, the staff is huge. And then the chief financial officer, Bill Steele. Boy, you talk about some uncomfortable conversations that have to go down. I don't know if they're going to, Bill Steele was also in charge technically of security. That would be an interesting deposition. It's like, Bill Steele, were you commanded to do surveillance on people who might vote against David Platt and, try to track them down? That would be interesting. I mean, what was this whole thing about ballots no longer being secret? They have data now on which side people are on, and that's part of the lawsuit right now. So And then, there are going to be all sorts of records that are effectively in the discovery process. I don't know if the correct word is to subpoena them, but they are part of the discovery process. Emails will have to be released. And this is something, if you're not guilty of any crime, you should be like, hey, no problem. But at the rate, the law firm that's defending David Platt is Holland and Knight. Now, I got to tell you something that's really sketchy. When the votes were counted in the June 30th and then the July 18th meeting, I'm pretty sure the law firm handling the count was Holland and Knight. Talk about the fox guarding the hen house. Okay, so they're the ones who conducted the count. It wasn't allowed to be independently inspected. And now they are the ones defending MBC. Now, they're a very expensive law firm. I believe the rate's $1,000 per hour per attorney. And, if they spend 1,000 hours on this case with the manpower that they would need to be releasing, with all the depositions that have to be made, all the documents released, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to prevent the discovery, this could be $1 million. And who's paying for this? Who's paying for this? The congregation, most likely, in their tithes. So what sort of simple questions are being guarded secrets? Like, how much does David Platt pay himself for this disaster? Is he making $500,000 as senior pastor for what he's done? And by the way, at $500,000, a 20% raise is $100,000. Is that right? Is my math correct? 20% raise would be $100,000. So while his church is dying, and let's just say hypothetically he was making $500,000, now it's $100,000 more, and he had to fire staff. He was firing staff at the same time. So if it doesn't come out in this lawsuit, there could be other lawsuits coming to demand financial transparency. See, and I'll tell you something about David Platt. He wrote a book called Radical. He was encouraging people to sell all that they had and preach the gospel. He charges, and this is public knowledge, $10,000 to $20,000 to give that message. He'll come and say, come to these conferences to promote his book Radical, and he'll say you have to sell all you have, forget about the American dream, and go preach the gospel. And he gets paid $10,000 to $20,000 for that. You can go to the internet for free, and you could read Jesus's own words. It says, sell all you have, give to the poor, and follow me. You don't have to pay $20,000 for that. Now, I think that there are some, and this is a good discussion to have, what does that verse mean? Because there's also places in the New Testament where it talks about doing honorable work. And there are times you don't necessarily go out to the mission field because you have responsibilities to your family. It says if you do not work and provide for your family, you've denied the faith. So if you sell all you have and you're not providing for your family, you've denied the faith. So you have to balance those scriptures with others. David Platt, some people follow that advice a little too literally at $10,000 to $20,000 per talk to hear him say that. Yes, there are organizations willing to pay that much just to hear that. One family took it to heart. They got impoverished and When they asked for a little money to help them with their mission work, McLean Bible refused. They're only asking, like, say, $500 a month. And so if David Platt's making $600,000 a year, we don't know the figure. But if he is, he certainly isn't practicing what he's been preaching and charging $20,000 to tell people. This does not look good for him. But why do we need $1 million in legal fees to protect that secret? And who knows what else? What other things are in the books? I will point out, and this is public knowledge, David Platt ran a $250 million international missions board, $250 million of the Southern Baptist Convention. His friend Kevin Ezell ran $100 million annual budget for North American Mission Board. These guys are used to playing with big amounts of money. Will McCraney, in a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court and is still in litigation, had pointed out that with that much money, these people can just line their coffers in all sorts of ways that don't look obvious. For example, Kevin Ezell can quote unquote donate to church plants. And the way to do that is to buy mansions for your friends and family and call it housing for the pastor. You can buy a lot of influence and power and line your pockets with stuff like that. In greetings, Jesus. Absolutely, we should demand an audit. Now, it may be outside of the scope of the current legal complaint, but I'll tell you what has happened. The defense, that is Platt and Company, said this is entering, this violates church and state separation. And the judge dismissed it because this is a secular matter when it comes to money and contracts. Money and contracts. And there's also now federal money and state regulations involved. This has become a secular matter. And what is really bad for them is when they enlist secular armed police officers to enforce what they want, they're now making this into the realm of the secular courts. So they themselves, it's ironic, and Rick Boyer, the attorney for the plaintiffs, made the point. It's ironic that McLean, the leadership of McLean, will be appealing to secular authorities to do their bidding. But the moment it doesn't agree with what they want, they'll say this is crossing the church-state boundary. So they themselves have ruled judgment on themselves, that they're saying, if they say that this is violates separation of church and state, they've already done that on so many levels, and they can't use that as a defense because they themselves have crossed the line there. And when it comes to money and financial accounting and contract laws, they have made a contract with the people that are donating money. Or members of the congregation. There's an expectation of financial responsibility, and that contract can be enforced. This can be enforced without reference to theology at all. How much money are we talking about? The estimated assets of McLean, at least the Tyson's campus alone, is $150 million. So let's say we tack on another $50 million for all the other campuses combined and cash or whatever, $200 million. The annual budget is $25 million reported, and that's questionable, but let's just assume that number. Over 10 years' time, that's $250 million. It's $250 million, plus assets existing, $200 million. You add that together, that's $500 million. this fight is a fight over some big amounts of money. This isn't merely a religious squabble. If people with the ethics of Kevin Ezell, according to Will McCraney, have their hands at McLean Bible Church, this is a money pot that could be exploited. And what this lawsuit is trying to regain transparency as to what's going on. We don't know where a lot of the money is going. We absolutely do not know. Yeah, they're financial reports, but they're not. They're a farce, honestly. And the leadership has refused to give us basic numbers. We don't know how much David Platt is making. We don't know. There could have been millions of dollars funneled to David Platt's friends, Kevin Ezell, in terms of church planting. We have no accounting of that. That would be very upsetting that all these church plants have gone kind of under our noses and we don't, millions of dollars. And what if these church plants are failing? Let's say all this was just an attempt to buy more properties to put in people's pockets as power leverage. If you own houses in the Washington, D.C. area, and you're offering it for free in exchange for things, you can garner a lot of power that way. Yeah, there are ways to use the money that, at least in the strict legal sense, may be just at the edge of what's legal, but in terms of ethics, it's just terrible. And there's a case now involving Kevin Ezell. And we don't know. Okay, the other thing I'll point out, and I've pointed this out before, the year-over-year revenues are being reported as the same. Let me see if let me do a screen share again. I'm sorry. Let me get this going. The year-over-year revenues are being reported the same, despite this drop in congregational attendance. Something doesn't smell right. I wanted to put a picture of a skunk. This really stinks to high heaven, that they could be claiming that they're actually increasing revenues while the congregational numbers are dying. This doesn't make sense. So we want to know how they're accomplishing this. A forensic audit would probably give us insight. And if they really are strapped for cash and reporting all this money, there's been federal money that's been given. Has it been misappropriated? So if it has been, it's a felony. I could tell you some women in the church were just giggling because David Platt was growing a beard. And he said that'll probably they'll blend in real well with his prison outfit. And when the women said that, another woman rebuked them and said, "Don't say that. Don't say that about our pastor." But the joke is circulating around because the suspicious behavior looks pretty bad at this point. Why are you going to waste $1 million of congregational money when you're not under any immediate threat of going to jail? And I said immediate threat because the lawsuit is only demanding that the votes stop being rigged. That's all it's really basically asking, that the election stop being rigged. And you're going to spend $1 million of congregational money to prevent an honest election? I mean, just think of it. I mean, all right. So, what do you have to lose if you're standing on the right by having a free election of members? What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose by not threatening your congregation with armed security threat, and arrest and jail? What do you have to lose if you're honest? But spending $1 million, even 200,000, I don't know what the number is. Say it's $500,000 to fight against a free and fair election with secret ballots. What are you hiding? How bad does it have to be? You have to behave this way. That's the point of this. If I were a pastor and there are questions about the election, I'll say, how can we make this a fair election? How could we make this a fair election? And, I'd offer to leave the church and say, okay, if I'm hurting the congregation, that's an indication I should go. If I, for example, had seen I had this effect on McLean Bible Church, if I were a pastor, I would say, Lord, I'm hurting the flock. Time for me to leave. So the question is, David Platt, what are you holding on to? How can you in good conscience say you deserve to still be pastor after all the damage you've done? And on what grounds did you give yourself a 20% raise when your church is dying and staff are leaving? What grounds? Is it about the money and the influence? It's kind of nice, by the way, that while you're pastor at McLean, you're not there a lot of Sundays. Everyone's noticed that. You're out going on speaking engagements that you charge $10,000 to $20,000 to tell people to stop the American dream and sell all they have. Be poor and go preach the gospel. So, this does not look good, sir. And to the elder board and staff that are watching this, I know you may not like what I have to say, but do you want to be part of this enterprise? I mean, you can't blame this on me. I was not responsible for this drop. Neither were any of the people on my side of the issue. I mean, it'd be a convenient scapegoat, but come on. We couldn't cause this bad of a drop in attendance even if we tried. So, this isn't over. So do I have anything else? If David Platt has to testify under oath, and I don't know whether this is the scope of the lawsuit, but he has said, there's this funny clip, and I wish I could show it. It said, let me see if I could find it. This is just too funny. A.D. Robles did a great job of lampooning this. So let me see if I could play this. Okay, so hang on. This is really just too funny. Now it's taking a while to load. It's taking forever to load. Okay, so A.D. Robles did a great job of lampooning this, and let me play it now. Okay, so I have to get all these buttons in order to get this going. Hang on. And screen share audio.
We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Okay. He said that July of last year, insisting, we're not a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. Will he be willing to say that under oath? We are requesting documents. And if it turns out that he knew we were a member of the Southern Baptist Convention and he was in cahoots with them, he was doing their bidding, this could look really bad. Because let's say he tells the truth and admits McLean Bible was put under the control of the Southern Baptist Convention, which is a very corrupt entity at this point, and it had negative impact on our finances, then he'll just basically admit then that what he told the congregation wasn't true. Now, if he under oath repeats what he just did, we have all the evidence that A.D. Robles went through for half an hour, describing all the documents and agreements that were made that indicate McLean Bible was under the control of the Southern Baptist Convention. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of how this could play out. So I'm hopefully making the case now. Why spend $1 million or even just $500,000 to prevent a free and fair election in McLean? It looks to me like there's something to hide, and this is subject to discovery, of course. There's something to hide, and that there is power, money, prestige, position to be held on to at all costs. I mean, why else would a wife and Christian mother be threatened with armed security, jail, and arrest when she was posed no harm to the congregation whatsoever, no harm physically to them? The only harm that she might have would be to nefarious purposes of the present leadership. That's how I see it. That's my opinion. I'm not going to try to represent it as fact at this point. But in any case, the trial is it's moving forward because of 2 legal cases in a row that David Platt lost. The third legal case that I was alluding to involved the Christian mother. She was dragged into court. Praise the Lord, the judge dismissed. She did not have to face trial. The attempt of McLean to get her fined and imprisoned up to 1 year was immediately dismissed by the judge. I hear reports that it only took 30 seconds. They just called her into the courtroom, said, case is dismissed. You're free to leave. The one who's not free to leave right now is David Platt. He is facing a jury trial now. He's not even facing any consequences except wanting him to do a free and fair election. And he's fighting tooth and nail. This just looks ridiculous. What does he have to hide? So finally, because a fellow church member has been saying negative things about me on the internet, I'm going to engage him. I did invite him to come to this channel and talk to me. He said, I want no part of that. I'm like, okay, you can come in the side chat and complain. He didn't show up. So I'm going to read what he has to say, and then we'll end this show. So we had an exchange, and I admit it really irritated me. But, since he's a church member, I will be cordial to listen to what he has to say. He said, I'm sowing dissension. I already proved my point. I'm not the one who split the church and drove off 75%. David Platt is. John Williamson is supporting David Platt. So if anyone has been, let me just point this out. If anyone has been sowing dissension, it's been David Platt and the members of the congregation that has supported him. That's sowing dissension. That's my opinion. We can argue over that. But using armed security to banish me from 5 campuses when I've done nothing wrong, that's sowing dissension. And then Williamson says, Salvador, Platt is not the issue. Yes, he is. He's on trial. He said, Platt's not the issue. I'm not the one facing trial. David Platt is. It's not for you or me to say he should leave. Did you read the New Testament? Where charges against an elder can be, they're brought by more than one witness. There are multiple witnesses. Multiple witnesses. You've heard what he's been saying. And you had the witness. Do you think 75% of the congregation leaving is not a good witness about what they think of him? Why don't you do some exit interviews and find out why? Longtime pastors, elders, and members of McLean Bible. There are thousands of witnesses. They can be removed from office. They can and should be removed from office. I listen to David and Mike's sermons. Do you? I do not hear things that are offensive or objectionable. Well, I brought it to the attention of things that Mike said, not in the pulpit, like it's difficult for him not to torch all white people. Are you comfortable with an attitude like that from a black pastor showing such contempt to white people just because they're white? Are you comfortable with that? I've listened to his sermons. They're disgusting. When he goes into this woke theology, his other sermons are great. 95% are. 5% stink. Because you do not accuse people of things they're not guilty of. Just because they're white, you do not tar them with all the sins of all people in the past. Some guy from Europe who immigrated here long after the Civil War and slavery, he's white. Are you going to start insinuating he's racist? That he's somehow carrying some white guilt for all the sins of the past of people that he had nothing to do with? And David Platt enabled this too. He was there in that infamous sermon in 2020 in May. I do not hear things that are, so John, I'll grant you don't hear them. Sure, the pastor may not say exactly what I would say about particular passage, but it's not the person. It's the word of God. When they preach from the word, I find myself reflective and convicted. And I think that is a good way to be under preaching and teaching that one respects. Jesus said, do all that the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, do all that they say and teach. But do not do the works that they do. So when they preach the gospel, if they just read the word, and as long as what they say aligns with the word, it is a good thing to follow it and to be blessed, because that is the word of God. I'll point out the word of the Lord came through Balaam's donkey. And just because a jackass, God can use a jackass to declare his word and his purposes, doesn't mean that one should behave like one. And it doesn't absolve someone just because he read the scriptures and taught 95% of it correctly, but then behaves wrongly, that he's off the hook. What justifies $1 million defense and there's not even yet a crime? All that's being asked for is a fair election. Why $1 million defense? $500,000, $250,000 at the rate Poland and Knight are charging. I'd be surprised if it's not at least $250,000 defense. This could be a multi-day jury trial. This could be a big deal. Why? What's being hidden? And I already said something as basic as David Platt's salary is hidden. If you cannot have that reflection and conviction under their teaching, you need to protect your own soul. Leave this long chapter behind you and find a place you will receive spiritual enrichment. You know, the Christian life is more than just being purely nourishing to your own soul and kind of just being there praying, oh God, make me feel good. It's doing the right thing, sir. If you believe, as I do, and I could be mistaken, but if you believe there is a wolf among the flock, you should remove them if you have the chance. I, as a member of McLean Bible, have that chance to call out someone that I think is there for their own gain and not concerned about the flock. The proof of that is that millions of dollars have been transferred from flourishing ministries given to, apparently it looks like to me, given to the corrupt North American Mission Board with no accountability. Millions of dollars. And the North American Mission Board's run by David Platt's friend, Kevin Ezell. Something doesn't look right. What's being hidden? So it's not just about me just trying to feel good. It's about trying to get competent and honest leaders at the helm. When David Platt said, we're not a member of the SBC, a lot of people said he's not telling the truth. And everyone has seen it. Why do you have to not tell the truth? You could say, we made a mistake, we're withdrawing. There's a terrible skunk here. I'm not going to go anymore. I think John Williamson tried to be kind. And we disagree. As a fellow member, I'll seek not to disrespect him. But I have to strenuously disagree. And I'd like to thank the viewers here who stood by me. You know, people were looking at me when I got threatened with jail and arrest as if I had done something terribly wrong, that I were the wrongdoer. It looked really bad for me, you know, to say I can't even go to church without being threatened with arrest and jail. So, and it was circulated in the church that I was up to no good, that I was, you know, part of a broader effort to fight against the church. And recently David Platt was likening us, insinuating that we were like Sanballat and Tobiah, plotting against God's church. And he said, yeah, we went through that recently this last year. And a lot got upset. A lot of the conservatives got upset when he said that, because he was insinuating this disaster, if I may show it again, this disaster was on account of people like me. He was insinuating that people like me were responsible for the disaster of what happened in McLean. And he was likening us to Sanballat. So first off, I don't believe we were not guilty of this disaster. He was. I mean, it's clear as day who's responsible, because a lot of the people that had built that church were the ones who left. David Platt did not build the church to its zenith. He came after and he destroyed it. He can't pin that on me or the longtime members. Many of them left because they were fed up with what they were seeing. So, so I don't have much else to say. I want to, I want to thank everyone who's heard me out. But I was saying it looked really bad for me last October. I looked alone and isolated and thrown out. But I praise the Lord. I'm not the one who's going to be facing a jury trial now. It's David Platt. He'll have to account for his behavior before the judge and the world to see. So I want to thank everyone who's been a part of this channel and had seen me through this. And I pray that justice will be served. In Jesus' name, amen. Take care and God bless you. Have a good evening.